well known that video games have been stealing from tabletop games for years. From the Elder Scrolls Tamriel's origins as a D&D campaign, to KOTOR being based on the D20 system that originated with 3rd edition. And I think that video games have developed enough that they are now a wealth of ideas and mechanics that we can take for our tabletop games. And to kick this series off, I'll be sharing some ideas that I think we can take from one of my all-time favorite games, Terraria. Keep in mind, going forward, that none of these ideas that I'm speaking about today have been playtested. They're simply a proof of concept for some ideas I think could be fun, and if any of you decide to try one of them out, just let me know how it goes in the comments. Magic items. There are a lot of items in Terraria, and I mean a lot. Over 5,000. And while not all of them would make interesting magic items, many could. Now, I'm not going to make all of those, because I'm lazy, and that would leave no fun for you. But here's a couple you can use as examples to make your own. The Terrorblade, the sword of a hero, forged from the finest blades of light and dark. Back when I first started playing Terraria, this was the strongest weapon you could get. At least my best friend and I were convinced it was, because that's what his older brother told us. Anyways, the Terrorblade is a large sword that's seemingly made out of some sort of green metal or crystal, and every time it is swung, a sword-shaped beam of green energy is released. For converting it into D&D, having the ability to fire a projectile every time a melee attack is made seems a bit strong. I certainly wouldn't want that in the hands of a high-level fighter. So here's what I'm thinking. Terrorblade. Weapon, greatsword. Legendary, requires attunement. You gain a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. Additionally, as an action, you can choose to fire a magical beam of energy at a creature within 60 feet. When you hit with this attack, it deals 2d8 force damage. Proficiency with a greatsword allows you to add your proficiency bonus to this attack roll. I feel this does a good job of maintaining the feeling of using the Terrorblade while still keeping the relative balance of high-level play. I thought about making the beam deal damage in a 30-foot line and requiring a dex save to simulate the piercing aspect of the projectile, but that would probably require charges to make balanced, and I wanted to have the character be able to fire at will, as I think it provides an interesting ranged option to strength-based martial characters. Another one of my favorite Terraria items is the Rod of Discord. This item allows you to click anywhere on your screen and teleport there. However, it has a short cooldown, which, if used again during that time, the player loses a significant chunk of their health. Rod of Discord. Rod. Rare. While holding this rod, you may use an action to cast Dimension Door without any verbal components. Whenever you use this rod again before taking a short or long rest, you take 4d12 force damage. This damage cannot be reduced in any way. I think the interesting part of this item is that the cooldown on it isn't just you can't use it again for X amount of time, but instead it allows the player to make a choice and weigh the consequences of using it again against the pros of its use. And while this item itself isn't anything all that special, I think if we take that principle and apply it to other homebrew items, we could achieve some very cool results. Bosses and encounters. It's a cold, stormy night. The party is tired and weary from the day's travel, now searching for shelter for their evening's rest. Off in the distance, they see a small building constructed from bricks of worn blue stone. As they enter and their eyes adjust to the low lantern light, they see an old man wearing decrepit clothes, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. He turns to them and begins to speak in a voice that is long gone hoarse with age. "Strangers, do you possess the strength to defeat my master? Please, battle my captor and free me, I beg you." The fighter locks eyes with understanding, draws his blade, and strikes the old man down. A sourceless, ominous laughter fills the air as a dark mist pours from his wound and begins to coalesce into a skull and 2 bloodied skeletal arms. I think Skeletron is one of the bosses with the most potential for us to take things from. First, just summoning him could make a really fun hook, especially for low-level players. You have to kill this cursed old man in order to fight the monster that has possessed him, but you spend too long fighting to simply revivify him back. So now you have to go and find a high-level cleric and the material components needed so you can fulfill the promise that you gave him, in order to allow him to return to his normal life as a tailor. Terraria has a lot of enemies with multiple parts, and this might be interesting to run a single large enemy with having multiple spots in initiative. This could also help action economy while still only having one large boss narratively. Sticking with the Skeletron example, he is made up of 3 parts, 2 hands and a head. So for this we would need to make 2 stat blocks like these for example. So now the interesting thing about Skeletron's multiple parts is that while his hands are still alive, his head has a much higher defense. But killing the head will also kill the arms. So your players have the option of either dealing with the hands first to make killing the head easy work, or killing the head and therefore causing the arms to die too. And just like the magic items, there is a wealth of inspiration to be had from these multiple segment bosses, but I can't do all of them, so here's a few more that I think could make an interesting encounter. The Wall of Flesh. A large creature that fills an entire corridor and slowly approaches the players. If the players come into contact with it, they take damage and are sent back 15 feet with no save. But it has its Hungry that will come and attack the party, allowing for melee characters to focus on protecting their party from these creatures, while the ranged party can focus on the main wall, and if it dies, of course, the rest of the Hungry go with it. The Eater of Worlds, a large worm creature that if enough damage is dealt to a middle segment, then it splits into 2 separate monsters, each that has half the remaining hit points and acts on its own. Lepus. This was a Easter-themed boss that was a giant rabbit that would lay eggs. If the eggs were left alone, it would spawn another Lepus. So, as a bonus action, this monster can put down eggs with about 10 AC and 5 HP, and if those eggs are left alone for 2 rounds, they spawn into another one of the enemy with the same stat block, and what was originally a single monster could soon be half a dozen. But be careful, this encounter could very quickly snowball. And finally, the Celestial Pillars. This is the event that precedes the final boss of the game. They're a set of 4 pillars that each completely takes over a section of the map near it and spawns many thematic enemies around itself. In order to damage the pillar, you must first kill a certain number of those enemies before you then have to focus your attention on killing it while also staying alive from the continuing hordes of enemies. I'm imagining this encounter as some sort of necromantic tower summoning hordes of undead, but it could very easily be a portal to another plane or just about anything you imagine. Like the rest of this video, it's really all about taking inspiration and altering it to fit your game. First, you'll need to create a table like this one. I made mine a D8. You could just as easily do a D6 or a D12 or whatever fits your taste. Fill it with encounters that are all reasonably easy for your party. When the players arrive on the battlefield, the tower, and a decent amount of monsters will already be there. My tower has an AC of 15 and about 200 hit points, but immunity to all damage. Begin running combat as normal, but on initiative 20 of every round, you roll on your table. Add the monsters you roll for somewhere on the battlefield that's reasonably close to whatever is summoning them, but not too close to the party as well. And keep track of every single time your player kills a monster. Once the players kill, say, 25 monsters, the tower loses its damage immunity and can now be attacked as if it was a creature. So that's it. That's what I came up with when taking inspiration from Terraria. Anything I missed? Let me know down below. But for now, that's all. Let's get out there, have fun, and roll some dice.